Now on stage we have Daniele Gobbetti, who is a freelance innovation manager, and will talk us about fostering innovation through open source. Daniele, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to start with a question to the room, which is how your company, if you're a manager or also if you're a developer or a worker of a company, how does your company create value? Value creation, for me, happens based on two main pillars, one of which is efficiency, so changing the way you do things, and diversification, so doing new things on top of what you are already doing. And if your company is doing a combination of these two and creates value, which, by the way, should not only be monetary value, can also be well-being of your own workers, can be well-being for the whole society, then I want to give you an information. You are doing innovation, because this is the very definition of innovation. So congratulations, you are an innovative company, and welcome to this talk, which is fostering innovation through open source software development. I'm Daniele Gobbetti, I'm an innovation manager, a freelancer, a certified project manager, and in the next few minutes, I will guide you, giving you arguments why being involved with open source and letting your people in your company being involved directly with open source project can be a value for your company. Let's start with the way I think we all believe contribution of companies to free software project happens. We have seen also this morning in the first talk that big corporations that have big money and big stuff can dedicate whole stuff, and in some cases they can even start new open source projects from scratch, and in such a way that they gain steering control over the project because they dedicate full-time equivalent persons to the project, or they give a lot of money to open source project, and this way they get back from the project the steering power on it. And on the other hand, the project profits from these contributions because, of course, they get either money or manpower. And as we have seen, open source projects are largely understaffed or under budget. So this helps a lot open source projects to survive. And of course, there is a win for both sides, which is the long-term stability of the open source project. If the company is relying for its own business on these very few open source projects, then of course they want these projects to be stable over time. And it's easy to dismiss this as an approach that doesn't work for small and medium enterprises. And it's true, because you don't have the budget, you don't have the staff to dedicate full time to open source projects. But you should be wary of not dismissing the participation to open source project, because there is a lot more that you can gain from being involved with open source project besides the steering power and the long-term stability that we've seen before. If you just allow your people to participate in the online discussions in open source project and perhaps reviewing the PRs, the contributions, the code changes that are proposed, you get information about how other companies that probably are in the same field as your company intend to use that open source project to build their business on. So you get insights on where your field is moving, and you get concepts and you get ideas. Perhaps you get new business ideas just from others' companies' contributions to open source projects that you are involved into. And of course, also for your staff, there is additional advantages, which is moving in a field which is a little bit far away from the day-to-day business, so being a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and of course, more free from business constraints. And we will see later why this is also important. This is a graph that comes from the ISO 5600, which is the ISO standard for innovation management. I guess you can relate to what you are seeing here. You move, when you do innovation, when you do new things in companies, you move from an idea, an intent, an opportunity that you identify through concepts and through solutions, and in the end, you reach the stage where you create value with the outcome of this process. But of course, this is not a linear process. Not every idea has the potential to actually be successful on the market and create value. So you can see that when you move from the identification to the creation of concepts and to the validation of concepts, you can go back and then you can go forward, and sometimes you skip steps. So in this, it's a standardized process, but I think you can relate that this is what actually happens. And if you let your company being involved to open source projects, as we have seen before, you get new ideas, so you identify opportunities just by watching what other companies in your field are doing. And then you can also work on the work that other companies have contributed, like perhaps just as change requests. They may not be accepted by the project, but you get to see them. And so perhaps you can build something on top of them. And in the end, of course, there are steps that remain only inside your own company, because the validation of concepts and the deployment of this final solution can only happen inside your company. But nevertheless, you get a lot of benefits because you get some work done basically for free. It's outsourced to the community, and it's something that you get back. But let's take it one step further. Typically, when you want to start something new, you have a certain percentage of success and a certain percentage of failure. You have to deal with this. Now, this may look a little bit dramatic. The percentage of failure is fairly high and the percentage of success is fairly small. But this is why the idea to approach this is through systemic innovation. I don't know if you are aware of what's it, but I will walk you through. So if we take a look at this one single initiative that has this kind of percentage of failure and success, you might say instinctively, okay, the value that I can get is if I reach success, but the cost that I must sustain is the whole cost of failure. Now, if you take a step further and say, okay, but this is a first initiative on which I will build a second one, and then a third one, and then an nth one, what you get is that also when you fail, or one can argue especially when you fail, you learn a lot because you tried new things. You validate or fail the validation of new things. So this learning that happens inside the company, on the one hand, is crucial that it's been actually perceived inside the company, but it's something that brings value. And with this value, so if you look at this way, and this first initiative is a first step to build on top of it other initiatives, I can guarantee that the next initiative that you are pursuing will have a larger chance of success. I will not claim that every learning translates one-to-one to a bigger percentage of success, but the path is clear. And of course, if you combine these two aspects, so if you combine this step-by-step systematic innovation approach, which is a standard in companies, with open source participation and the advantages that we have seen before, you get that this trial and validation that you have, this learning that you have, can be built on top of experience that happens outside of your company and that you are exposed to. So this is time you save. These are resources you save, which in the end means money for the companies. So I strongly believe that free and liberal open source software is a key enabling methodology for reaching more innovation also in small companies. And despite not being able to reach these first order advantages, that is the steering power over a project and the dedication that you get, still there is a lot to get from. So to go back to the first slide, how can free and open source software create value for your company? for the efficiency, of course, you get these increased learning opportunities. So you learn how to use the tool that you are already using in a more efficient way. And of course, you get new business ideas. So you get the opportunities to diversify your output and to build a more successful company in the long term. If you remember, in this slide, I said, okay, there is another part that talks about the stuff. And by the way, I see also a few young people here in the room, and I encourage you to use these arguments to talk to your bosses, to say, let us work on open source project during our work time, because it can bring advantage not only to us. We like to create. I'm a developer myself, so I know that we like to create stuff, but also can bring value to the company. So please use these arguments, because these are arguments that companies understand. But nevertheless, also for you, there is something good that comes from this freedom, from the business constraints, and from being outside the comfort zone. So all the steps that we have seen before and the brainstorming process that happens when you create new stuff have two separate stages. The first of which is the more creative one. So when you collect ideas and you think of stuff that you do, this is usually the classical thing that happens in brainstorming. Like, okay, we are now doing a brainstorming. You are free to say everything that you have in mind. And your boss is there like that. Yeah, no, go on. You're free. Nobody's judging you. And usually this doesn't work that well. And because the business constraint and being in the same topic and area doesn't help creativity. And through this, you can go in another field, because the projects that you are using typically are just a part of your business, and in a community that is not the one of your company. So you are outside, and people can train their abilities to become really creative, both in the divergent thinking, so in creating new ideas, and in the so-called convergent thinking, that is where you connect the dots in a new way to create new things. And so the good thing is that this both can be practiced. And I think that having the people of your company being active in open source project helps practicing these topics, and then they will be practiced, and your people will be better when you have to do it inside your company. I've left a few link in the references, because there are online tests that you can do to evaluate your current status of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So you can also evaluate how good you are getting when you go further. So with this, I'm done. I thank you very much. And if you want to keep in touch, there's my website, and I'm here. I'm going around.
Thank you, Daniele. Thank you. Let's see, since we have 1 minute and a half, if there is any question from the audience. Don't be shy. Otherwise, I'll go first and I break the ice. Is there other tips that you can suggest to enhance this kind of innovation in a company?
Yes, I will say that every IT company somehow depends on some open source projects. And so these are a good start to a good short list to have to start working with. And otherwise, I would say that just talk to your technical people, to the companies, and find some project that they love and allow them to be there, and perhaps even just being active on the mailing list or Discord, I guess nowadays is more common, that mailing list or issue tracker or whatever will bring people forward. And then, yeah, I've put some links to these methodologies to improve the divergent and convergent thinking. And this is also something that really I tell the companies that I work with to do, because it's very common that managers say, my technical people cannot be in brainstorming sessions because they are very good at creating code, but not very good at being in that situation. And this can change.